Everybody likes to talk about the positive sides of the final expense insurance industry, how much opportunity there is, how much money you can make, and all the freedom that comes along with it. But just like every business, it comes with its nasty sides. Stuff that you probably wouldn't find out when you first speak to someone who does final expense insurance sales. Today, I have Kyle Panepinto with me from Salmon Insurance Group to talk a little bit about the ugly sides of the final expense insurance industry. Kyle, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
Hey, of course, my pleasure. So, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into this industry.
Sure, man. So, so insurance was not my dream as a kid. Kids they want to be Superman, they want to be a firefighter. I did not want to be an insurance broker, but it is where my path has led me. My past, I've spent most of my adult life being self-employed. I owned a commercial painting company. It was quite successful at one point. Things happened. Because it was commercial, I had a lot of eggs in one basket, and kind of overnight, my business was able to almost be taken from me. I mean, I lost 80% of it because of one thing. I'm gonna leave names out of it, but lost a really large contract that was a large part of my business, and kind of flipped things up on its head, uh, figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I don't know if anybody knows, but when you're in your 30s and you've been self-employed most of your adult life, finding a new career that pays you what you've used to being paid is a very difficult task. It
Yeah.
wasn't like I can go take a $30 an hour job that wouldn't pay my bills. I had a quite the lifestyle. We did whatever we wanted. We went whenever we wanted. I had every toy you can imagine. We put a pool in. We did everything that anybody would want to do with money. It actually got to a point, shortly before I came into this industry, where I didn't know what to do with the extra money I had. I invested in another business. I was like, this is sitting in my safe. What do I do with this? So we invested in another business, and you know, probably 2 months after that, lost most of my income.
Wow. That's a journey. Um and that's how you got into insurance?
Yeah, so about 4 years prior to my business taking a turn, I went and to a just a networking event, man. I was at a Chamber of Commerce event that I attended regularly. Networking was a big part of my job, as a business owner, and I met a guy there. I couldn't even say we became friends. We became Facebook friends. We were mutual contacts. But lo and behold, his Facebook feed wound up on mine a lot. And then after, gosh, 6 months of applying for work, trying to find something that was gonna be suitable for my lifestyle, pay my bills, I finally reached out to this guy and I said, "Hey man, tell me about what you got going on." It was really as simple as that. Um, and long story short, man, we had a couple conversations, and here I am in the final expense insurance industry.
That is quite the story, my friend. Okay, I got a question for you. So, you were doing really well in your business and you were doing super well financially, and then something went wrong. And then it got so low that you couldn't even pay your bills. So, you thought, okay, I got to get myself out of this rut. I got to find something that's going to help me out of this situation and get me back up to where I was before or even higher. So, where are you in that journey today, and how long did it take for you to get there?
Today I'm back to bills are paid, and I have a lot of them. Let's be honest. I did. Don't get me wrong. When I got into this opportunity, I saw where it could take me,
Hmm.
and so I was willing to do things that a lot of people aren't willing to do. I sold a ton of things. I mean, we had a vacation place in out of state, gone. Uh, I couldn't even name all of the things, all of my assets that I have liquidated to pursue this opportunity.
Hmm.
So I had a really strong feeling that this was right for me. But to answer your question, it took about 3 months. So to reverse a little bit, when I started in final expense insurance, when I tell you I had no money, I'm talking when I got home from the day, when hit my garage clicker, I prayed to God that my power was on and my garage door would lift.
Wow.
I've had letters taped to my door saying, "Hey, we're coming to take your truck, bro." Like it was serious. So I was in pretty far rears to a point where I was getting contacted pretty viciously. But in about 3 months of starting, I was able to round back up to where I wasn't concerned about what was happening with my electric and power and about people coming to take my belongings. And then about I'd say 5, 6 months in, I was in front of it. So it was really a miraculous turnaround. I had a hard time believing myself that it was possible until I did it myself.
That is amazing. And I mean, these are the stories that you hear about, right? The success stories, the I was really down and I was down on my luck or I was having a really bad time. And then this industry, this business, this opportunity helped me get to where I wanted to be. Like, for example, you were desperate, if I may use the word, and you worked your way back up. And now you're doing really, really well for yourself. I know you're saying the bills are paid, but you're doing pretty well. But the matter of fact is that the people and a lot of people that come into this industry, they're not in the position where they need every single penny or they're not like desperate. They're ambitious, but they're not desperate. So sometimes when they hit a wall or see something different than what it's supposed to be, then they go, "Wow, I was not told this. I was not expecting the industry to be like this." Right? The industry takes a blame for sometimes people setting the wrong expectations. So, what are some big misconceptions about the final expense insurance industry that new agents should keep in mind so that they're not surprised?
And so we don't have enough time for all that, but I will hit on a few. So I think one of the most common ones is probably you get into the industry and you're promised 1,000 things. Now, the biggest promise that is usually made is like, hey, you can make 6 figures your first year. Now, can you? Absolutely. But you've got to go to work. So it wasn't a challenge for me. So maybe that's off topic for this question. I think a lot of people have struggled with not believing in what they're doing. So, for instance, before I got into this industry, again, I'm in my I'm gonna go with early 30s. I'm in my early 30s, and I'm gonna ride that out as long as I can. But I didn't have life insurance, dude. I didn't think anything of life insurance. You could have came to me tomorrow and said, "Hey, man, you need to have a policy," and I'll be like, "Dude, I'll talk to you about it another day. I'm young and healthy." But once I got into the industry, I started to understand it. Then stage two was I started to believe in it. Stage three was I've got my own policies at this point. I actually have quite a few of them. And but believing in what you're doing is going to be huge. I mean, it's like trying to uh, life insurance is always my best example. I mean, I can't sell you a life insurance policy if I don't believe in what I'm doing. So people thinking that they come into the business and they have this realization like, hey, I think I'm selling snake oil. We're not. You have to really have a conviction for what you're doing. And if you have conviction for what you're doing, people will see that and they'll feel that and you'll excel pretty dramatically.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because we literally just put out a video and part of it was talking about how mindset is the most important part of the game. And a lot of people say, no, that's BS. But honestly, it is your biggest weapon. If you don't have the right mindset, you're just not going to make it in this industry, right? So, what would be your recommendation of getting into the right mindset?
Yeah, I mean, the mindset is it's hard to say you acquire it. So it's something that you either have it or you don't, right? When you go back to saying that, the leads, people say the leads are bad. That's always what the first thing to blame, or no one's answering the door, right? So in the business that I'm in, we specifically do door knocking. Now, it's not cold door knocking. These are people who have requested these services. But we are knocking doors, and the first two things you're going to hear is either A, the leads are crap, or B, there's nobody home. So either one of those are easily debunkable. Now they're going to be the go-to responses for a new agent. They're going to want to blame the leads, but it doesn't come down to the leads. All a lead is a legitimate excuse to be at the door, and you have to take it from there as a salesperson. Now, you don't have to be a seasoned salesperson to do this. I have an agent on my team who had never done sales before in his life, and
Yeah.
he is crushing. He's doing bigger numbers than I do, and he is
Wow.
crushing it. The mindset is huge, and it's because he wants to excel. He wants to do well in this, and therefore he goes to work.
No, you're absolutely right. And this is something that I always say. It's that you could be the most talented salesperson on this planet, but hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. You could be talented, that's great. Talent is awesome. But if you're not showing up consistently and you're not doing the job constantly, then you're not going to get the results that you want. It's not a big secret. Really, if you want to be successful in this industry, you have to basically just show up and do the work. Now, you talked about some excuses that people make when they have the wrong mindset, but sometimes people are doing everything right, and then there's still stuff that comes along, hurdles that you have to get over. What are some of those hurdles when you have the right mindset and you're doing everything right, but these are hurdles that you're still facing? What are some of those, and how have you overcome them in your journey?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, one of them is a lot of the people we're dealing with already have policies. So we're not only writing policies for people who don't have it and have a need for it, we're also helping people get out of either bad situations, just help them get into a better situation or add value. So, this is a brokerage is what I'm doing, right? So I run a brokerage, which means I can work with multiple different carriers, which means I have options. So if somebody, has one of those big name companies, I'm not going to name any names, and they're stuck in that policy because when they spoke to that insurance agent, that's all that insurance agent had to offer. So a lot of our business, I mean, I would say upwards of 60, 70% of our business is replacements. It's actually getting people into better positions. So there are times when you're going to run across a client that you cannot help. If they're too sick, if they're too old, there are a couple of different things that you just can't do anything for them. Or if they've had their policy for 20 years, their rate is fantastic. Or the only play you have is the fact that they have a whole lot of cash value in the policy, but it may not make sense to pull that cash value out because they have no debt to pay off with it. And that's kind of specific to somebody who's on a fixed income. If you were on a fixed income, you're making $900 a month, but you have a credit card that is just chewing away at you. You can't do anything about it because you never have that win to do a payoff. That might be a huge thing for you to be able to pull a cash value out of a policy and then get back into a new policy. Now, there's only a few circumstances where that would even make sense. But that's one example of how you could sit with somebody that you just physically cannot do anything that is ethical to put them in a different or better position. So
Mhm.
ethics plays a big part in a good, valid reason why you can't do something.
Oh, that's a great response because a lot of people, when they first come in, they're so focused on making the sale that they forget about the ethics part. You're not just selling, you're actually helping families out. And at one point or another, every agent, will ask them the question, ask themselves this question, which is like, did I sell the right policy to the right person? If they're at least a little bit ethical. And that is very important to get it right from the start before it's too late. Now, you've been with one agency your entire career, Solomon Insurance Group.
I found the best one first.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And Nate's a good friend of mine, so he's going to kill me for asking this question. But a lot of agents, when they come into this industry, agencies make them these big promises, and those promises are not met, and then they're let down. Are there any promises that you were made that were not met when you first joined the industry?
Man, so I think that's a question that could be answered many different ways. Where I am and where I was blessed, I mean, I was seriously blessed to land where I am because I know a lot of agents and a lot of people in our industry who have been to multiple different IMOs or uh, just can't find that right place. So I think there are places that will set unrealistic expectations. Here, I believe, and I firmly believe this because, at this point in my career, I am mentoring and I am coaching agents on underneath me. And I think it really is going to come down to something as simple as I cannot do the work for you. I will give you my all, I will pour into you 120%. But if you're going to fail in this business, it's because of you. And if you're going to win in this business, it's because of you. I can't do everything for you. I will give you the blueprint. I will give you absolutely everything you need. I'll answer every phone call you give me, every text message. But your success here is going to be determined by you.
Buddy, that's a great response, but let me rephrase the question. You know, a lot of
Sorry.
agents. No, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay. Now, a lot of people come to you from different IMOs or different agencies, and they say, "Man, I was made all these promises, and not a single one, or not most of them, were just not met." What are some of these promises that are too good to be true that new agents joining the industry should be on the lookout for?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, you're gonna hear people tell you, man, you can make six figures. You get sleeping in your pajamas, don't even have to get out of bed. I mean, you will hear some outrageous things being said to agents for lack of a better word, lure them into the industry. Um, there's gonna be, and again, I'm not name dropping anything. There are a ton of companies out there who do a lot of marketing, and now when I say that there is that bad, right? But there's also the good side of it. So there are the companies that are going to tell you you can become a millionaire here in 2 years. You can drive a Lamborghini and drink martinis and go to Bora Bora while you're making money while you sleep. They're going to tell you all the great. Um, what I like to do is focus on the bad. I take a complete opposite on that. But a lot of companies will do those misleading things, and they're not wrong. So when I say that they're misleading, I mean that very literally. Like you could, if you're an absolute rock star, you could.
Yeah.
You absolutely can make 100 grand your first year. You absolutely could become a millionaire in a very short amount of time. Um, so misleading, yes, but it is possible. It's just a matter of if you as a person, as a human being, can achieve those things.
Okay, fair enough. So then that leads me to my next question, which is you said that you can earn a lot of money, but how many agents actually do? What should they be expecting in their first year? What does the average agent even make? And is the promise or goal of earning high figures or a six-figure salary even possible, or is it realistic?
Absolutely, it is. And I can say that wholeheartedly because I did it. And I know many, many, many people who have done it. I've also seen many, many, many people fail out of this business. So I'd say a realistic expectation for a first year agent, and this is full time, right? I can't talk for part timers because I won't work with part time. If you are working, even with Salmon Group, as far up as our uplines go with the partners, the our group as a whole we are full time. This is a business that I am obsessed with, and I think obsession is almost a key to success in this business. So a full-time agent, first year in the industry, you should be able to do between 75 and 100 grand. Now, this is also an industry. I mean, most people who are watching this, they know somewhat of final expense or life insurance. It's an 8% industry. They say that 92% fail in this industry. Now, I'm doing my best, and I know, my mentors and my coaches, we're doing our best to change that. But the reality is, few make it because few have what it takes to make it. But the ones that do come in, they should be able to, I would say realistically, you're going to be in that 75,000 to $100,000 range in your first year.
Hmm. I mean, I guess it also depends on your team if they're supportive and the systems that they give you and they put in place.
100%.
I know.
So it depends on the systems, it depends on the mentors, the coaches. I would not be sitting here talking to you right now if I didn't have the mentors and the coaches and the systems that I have.
Yeah.
A 100%, I guarantee it. If I came into this industry and I did not have the support I was given and the
Yeah.
support that I give to my agents, I would not have had that success.
No, that's awesome. And speaking of systems, if you are somebody that does field sales or sells final expense insurance in person, then Knock It Pro is one of the best systems out there for you. Knocket Pro allows you to create custom labels for your leads so you know exactly where they stand in the sales cycle. For example, if I visit this lead once or twice, I can change the label to door knock 1 or door knock 2. Or if they ask me to come in the evening, I can just set 8 p.m. label. The app also allows for you to create your own custom labels to best suit your needs. And when you are working your route, you can simply click a button and it will show you all the other leads nearby that you can quickly visit and potentially close that you would have otherwise missed. You can also add notes to each lead and even attach pictures. You can download Knocket Pro in the App Store or simply click the link in the description. Kyle, another question regarding income. Now, a lot of people are used to a fixed salary. They get paid every 2 weeks or they get paid every month, and this is what is referred to as a steady income. But in the final expense insurance space, it's 100% commission based, meaning if you or your team don't go out and sell, you make $0. Is that fair? Why or why not?
1,000% yes. And I'm unwavering on that. So there is a common misconception between W-2 and 1099,
Hmm.
and that usually lies within job security. That is the number one response you'll get. And I've done polls on this. I've asked many people. The number one response is job security. Now, with a 1099, and now one of the partners in our company just recently had a video out that put this into English for me. And a 1099, right? If you don't go to work for 2 weeks, you don't make any money. A W-2, if you don't do your job for 2 weeks, you don't have a job. They will fire you. So I think it's a false sense of security with a W-2 position. And it's a misconception that I've been battling for most of my adult life because I've always dealt with that. I haven't had a steady paycheck in over a decade. So this is all I know, but I also understand that W-2 is a false sense of security. If anything, it's actually more dangerous because someone is controlling A, what you're worth per hour, and B, whether or not you get a check next week. Nobody controls that for me as a 1099. I'm the only controller.
No, that is a great perspective, man. Instead of thinking, I don't know where my next paycheck is going to be coming from, you get to decide how much you're going to make based on how much work you do and how much you go out. So that's pretty cool. You actually have, no, that is an awesome perspective, man. Instead of thinking, I don't know where my next paycheck is going to come from, you're actually getting to decide how much you want to make based on how much you want to work. You are in control. And speaking of being in control, another thing that agents kind of get to control is which IMO or insurance agency they want to work with. Now, I know we talked about false promises that people tend to make, but there are also other major big red flags that new agents should be on the lookout for. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Man, so like I said, I was lucky to get into the space that I did. One of the things that really drew me here was A, it's a brokerage and not a what we call them a captive agency. So the brokerage gives you the freedom of working with multiple products and multiple carriers versus selling one product that may or may not be the right fit for somebody. Because again, I always revert back to ethics. And in our industry, sometimes most of the people, or I can't say most, a lot of people in our industry are a little too lax on the ethical side of what we do. I have
Mm.
a saying on my team, if you wouldn't do it for your mother, do not do it for the client. There's another sale out there for you. You don't have to write this one. If it doesn't feel right, do not do it. So there's that. There's events. I mean, if you're going to, these are some of the most powerful things out there, right? So we basically get paid to hear no all day long. If you count the number of no's we get versus the numbers of yeses we get, we go for the no's because if you calculate it out, basically you're getting paid for every one of those no's, and then you get that one yes, and it wipes them out, right? So you've got to have in between all of this struggle because it is a hard industry. It's a so let me rephrase that. It is a simple industry, but it is not easy,
Mm.
right? What we do is not easy, but it is simple. Anybody could do it if they put the work in. But the events and stuff like that, so the team building and having camaraderie and having your mentors be readily available to you, these are big things that we want to look for and big things that a lot of companies miss out on if they just kind of leave you in the dark, right? So now when you're looking for that, a red flag, I think, would be you don't, you're a captive agent. That for me is a red flag. I'm not saying that it's the worst thing in the world. You don't own your own book of business. So there are a lot of agencies where you do not own your book of business. And meaning, where I am, every client I have, these are my clients. I have an end game in 10, 15 years. If I wanted to sell my book of business, I have the ability to do that because this is my book. Um, I think there's a lot of flashiness going on in the industry, and I don't want to say to look out for it, but just be aware. If they're being a little too hard coming onto you, if they want you this to have this job more than you want this job, that's probably a red flag. I want to make sure that everybody I'm talking to, I'm asking questions. I'm not spilling the beans, telling them everything grand about what we're doing. If anything, I do the opposite. I'll tell them, some of the bad. But I want this to be something that they want because otherwise they're not going to excel and they're not going to climb the ranks and achieve the things that they want if it wasn't something that was their idea. I can't make it my idea. It's got to be asking questions, learning what they want out of their industry or out of their career, and then providing the feedback that assists what they were looking for, rather than just spewing like, you can make 100 grand a year, you can drive a Lambo. That stuff is awesome and it is attainable. But why are you here? If I was talking to you, Safir, why are you looking into the final expense life insurance industry? Tell me about it and end it there. So anybody who's throwing up on you, it's probably a red flag.
Hmm. I see. Now, you mentioned that you get a lot of no's before you get a yes or before you get yeses. I mean, rejection and objections are part of the sales game, and every industry kind of has their typical clients that you work with. To be honest, you can find every type of client in every industry, but you got your typical clients. So, what are some of the most frustrating things about working with a typical final expense insurance client?
So in final expense specifically, our target demographic is fixed income seniors, right? So there's a couple things. I would say number one is that they are a commonly targeted demographic, right? So they're not real tech savvy and they're fairly easy to take advantage of from the wrong people. So that puts their guard up, right? We when we get to their door and we're knocking on that door, even though we have their lead that they filled out, they requested me to be there. I've got some proving to do before they're letting me in that door, right? Because they've been taken advantage of so many times. The times are changing quicker than they can keep up with it. So that is probably one of the most common ones, I think, is that their guard is up because of their generation and where they are, right? Another one is that a lot of our clients are award-winning procrastinators. They've been procrastinators their entire lives. So bringing this up to them now, even though they requested it, and this is something that's on their mind, we've got to really. It's not a sale, right? So we're an assistant buyer while we're in the house. People buy from who they know, who they like, and who they trust. So we've got to nail those things down in a very short amount of time while we're sitting in their house. I mean, I'd say on average, I'm in someone's home. If we wind up, getting them a policy, it's probably about a 45 minutes to an hour. But in that time, I've had to get them to know me, like me, trust me, and actually want to know what I think would be the best move for them because they're uneducated on the subject that I'm there for. I'm the licensed professional. So assistant buyer versus a salesman, right? Um, but again, they're award-winning procrastinators, so we have to really find out what their why is. So I focus a lot on the whys, even when bringing people into the business. If your why isn't, if we have a saying in the Salmon group, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not strong enough. So it's very similar with our clients that we have to figure out early on in the discovery phase of our presentation why they're looking for a final expense plan. A lot of times it's because a traumatic event had just recently happened. They lost somebody. Sometimes it's a personal. They just know that if something happens to them, my family's got to go do a GoFundMe or do a fish fry, and I don't want that to be the last thing they remember about me. So finding out what the reasoning is that they're looking into these plans is going to help you overcome these objections. Um, but I think those are probably two of the strongest. And again, back to them not trusting, a lot of agents you'll hear they don't want to give me their bank info. They don't want to give me their social security number. That's something you can overcome with trust. So that's not something I hear often at all, if ever. That's a trust issue, right? So all of these things are overcomable as long as you've got those strong mentors and coaches and leaders and programs and systems and you know even I mean it really has nothing to do with this, but even something like Knock It Pro. Knock It Pro is a system that I can use to circle back to people who were on the fence. They're about to age out, right? So they're 69 when I met them. They really liked the idea of it, but they had to think about it, right? And I wasn't a strong enough salesman to get them to do it on the pull the trigger now. So I'll go in my Knock It Pro, man. My Knock It Pro probably looks super weird compared to a lot of people because of all the icons I have. I have months of the year. So if I meet with somebody who's on the edge, I'll literally know that their birthday's in January. They get marked as a January in my thing so that I know to contact them in January, say, hey, your rates are about to go up. Have you thought about it? What can I do to help you? So it, it all kind of comes together to
It,
as
it
one big old system.
No, it's a really good tool, man. I mean, every single week we hear new stories about agents saying stuff like, oh, I had a lead that I didn't even know was in the area and I had all these notes on it and I had pictures. And when I drove by, I noticed a different car in the driveway and I was able to close. And, ultimately it brings down the cost per lead or cost for your leads overall. So if you're doing field sales or in person sales, you should definitely be getting Knock It Pro. Is there anything else you would like to add when it comes to giving some more insight to newcomers in this industry?
Yeah, I would stick to what I said earlier with the red flags. I think really it has to be somewhere that you feel you fit, and you should know this. So we offer this thing called a ride along. So literally, you come take a seat in my car with me for the day, see what it is I do all day long, and see if it's right for you before you move forward with doing anything. Before you go get your license, before you go get contracted, before you do anything, come see what a day in the life of what we do is. And I think that's something that's a little specific to us. And it's powerful because we get to really encompass everything that we're going to be doing before we jump in. And sometimes we're plucking people straight out of careers. Sometimes they're like me, and where your back is against the wall and you need something that's going to provide what you need. But no matter what situation they're in, they're still taking a leap of faith and starting a new career. I don't care what point of your life you're in, it's still a leap of faith. So to be able to show somebody that before they take that leap, I think is important. But I could carry on and on and on about this stuff. It's up to you how much you want to hear about it.
I got to tell you, Kyle, I really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure when others see it, they will as well. They might even want to continue this conversation with you. How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on social media platforms. I post pretty much daily. You can look at Instagram. It's just Panepinto K is my last name, first initial. Or you can email me directly if you have questions. If you just want to talk, even if you're not looking at you coming on with me, I'd be love to just give advice and be a mentor for you. Just email me at kyle.kpfg. That's KP Financial Group is my brokerage at gmail.com. So kyle.kpfg@gmail.com.
Kyle Panepinto, everybody. Kyle, it was a pleasure having you, and thank you so much for your time and the insights that you've provided into the industry.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you for your time.